What's up? It's your boy Domcast on the desk with TDS. We're back after a break. We're here for some more Legends of Runeterra action on Runeterra Academy. How you feeling, TDS, after that little vacation we had?
Yeah, came in surprising, wasn't expecting that, but certainly more relaxed and ready for the last week before playoffs. So should
Mhm.
be an interesting set of matches. I'm really excited to see what happens. And there's a lot of small details that we need to talk about before going into this week of games because there's good chances for a lot of teams, but they not only depend on themselves, but on other teams as well. So I think we should jump on it because of how many things could happen that could go wrong or could go well for them, right?
I mean, yeah, like playoffs are on the line, and it's going to be an exciting night just to see where all the cards lie. Haha, pun cards, card game. But where everything comes up, and I mean, we already are going to be covering a pretty interesting match between the
Yeah,
Poro Protectors and the other team
open
TDS.
pass if I'm not wrong. Yeah.
Open Pass, yeah. So both these teams need to 2-0 the other to basically clinch a playoff spot.
Or be
Anything other
closer.
than sorry?
Or be closer. It's not necessarily just getting the playoff
Mhm.
spot, but it's 2-0 and something else after that.
Oh, so yeah, so they need a 2-0 and something else to guarantee their spot in. So anything besides a 2-0 is just completely rolling the dice on
Yeah.
whether you get a playoff spot or not. So this is a huge matchup, like you said. And I mean, just go into it a little more, TDS.
Yeah, so looking at how the numbers were on this, it's first of all, it's starting, like you're saying, 2-0 between these two teams. And then the potential for each of these teams varies depending on who their matchup is and how the next one is. Because if I'm not wrong, Poro Protector after this plays against TAH. If I'm not wrong, it's TAH. So they need to 2-0 this and then win against TAH, if I'm not wrong. And on the other side, Open, if they 2-0 this, they are against SB, which it's a better opportunity for them. It's closer in matchup between the two teams, but they still need to 2-0, and they still need to go into that match hoping that SB has lost 2-0 as well against the number one seed, but it's still an 2-0 that they need in favor for Open Protector. So it's really dependent on other matchups, not only on this one, and it could be really interesting how it ends up developing.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's going to be an interesting matchup. And I mean, we have picked a pretty good match with a lot on the line for this highlight. Let's, I guess, look at the decks that we're going to be seeing between Pro Protectors and Open Pass. I mean, we have some cool decks, definitely something we haven't seen, but I hate to I hate to break it to you, TDS, but Ari Kennen is still insanely broken. It is the go-to
Okay.
for I think all of the teams. And as we before we get into the deck list, I have been told that FM forfeited against OGAT. So this is even more
Ooh.
important. This is even more important for both teams because now that that spot has become even harder to claim, I believe.
Yeah,
So
they still need to 2 the series, but it just became a little bit harder for them, and they still need to hope for some other results to kind of
mhm.
fall into place, and for their second match to be it's going to be really important for both of these teams, or for whoever 2 the series.
And at the end of the day, it all comes down to you have to win. And if you want to
Yeah,
make it in, you guys gotta win. So to do that, we're gonna take a look at these decks as we go into it. We're gonna start with Portal Protectors and a deck that's near and dear to my heart, the MF Quinn Scout deck. Now, I played a ton of this a while back when when Quinn was released, and that was a good deck to play. And just looking at the list, we see MF and Quinn, obviously the two most important parts of this deck. And then we
yeah,
see the Fleet Feather Tracker, the Jagged Butcher, the Bright Steel Protector. All of this stuff is pretty standard. One thing that I am surprised is not in the deck is the Crackshot Corsair, the Siren, or the not the Siren, the oh yeah, no, this the Siren, the MF Boat card, and then Concerted Strike. So the concerted strike is likely your only way to clear the board with spells without attacking. So it's very very important for a card that protects or to use that card to protect MF and Quinn because the deck relies entirely on MF leveling up. And if you cannot level MF up, then your game is basically lost. And obviously the scouts enables MF to level up because you only need to attack twice to get all of the level up requirements for MF. And once you do, passive just becomes so much stronger. She gains overwhelm. It's basically a done deal. But without cards like the Concerted Strike or the or specifically the Concerted Strike, any card that comes out on the board that's over a certain health percent or a certain health number is just an insane threat because a lot of the cards in your deck aren't really that tough. You have the Grizzled Ranger, which is a 3/1, turns into a 3/4 on death. The Island Navigator is a 2/4. That's about all the health you really have as far as blockers go.
Yeah, they feel much more like sacrificial pawns to keep up around you so that you can get your attacks with the MF and the Queen, but they are not going to be your main force, to say the least, pretty much.
Yeah, and I mean, I like the Bright Steel Protector. The barrier is definitely an insanely valuable effect in the current meta with, all of these Noxus cards, all these Piltover cards, all these Bandle cards that deal spell damage. I don't like I just don't like the Bright Steel Protector. You would be better off bringing a barrier because you have to be so proactive with the Bright Steel Protector that like anything could happen. Because you play the Bright Steel Protector early, like on a round start, then you get a pokey stick into a get excited and your MF's cleared.
Yeah,
So
the way
I
to
mean, there's
try
a
and
lot of
keep this
things.
MF safe
Yeah,
seems
there's a
like
lot of things.
lackluster.
Sorry, there's a lot of things in
Yeah.
this deck that are good, but I feel like some of the options that they've elected for have better copies or cards that work better towards the same purpose.
I can see that. I feel like there's maybe a little bit higher risk, but also the upfront reward that you may receive with some of these other cards may be what Miman is trying to get with this kind of deck. Because, like you're saying, keeping your map safe is going to be one important part, and the lack of potential to keep her safe, it's going to be worrisome. But you may get much more out of the cards that will instead be able to full front attack with EMF.
Yeah, I definitely see that. It's just I still can't get over the MF needs to level up and she needs to be on the board for the whole duration of the level up, which is just tough to see. But enough of me ranting about how I don't like the decks. Let's look at the other side, TDS. You're covering
Karen the Mage, and more specifically, Karen the Mage's Elise Rondo deck, which it's one that seems to be really interesting, focusing a lot on the Spiderling potential and what you can do with those Spiderlings. Obviously, you have the Trondo to be there as well to kind of have another strong force in attacks. But the most dependent unit that you see from this deck, it's a Spiderling creation. And the Spiderling, how much you can do with those Spiderlings, and how much you can keep the spam up to keep to threaten the enemy nexus and threaten the enemy. I like the idea overall, and I feel like it's a nice niche deck that comparable to other decks that we have previously talked. It's one that it's risky to play against, and I think that as a first deck, if you get the chance to play it, this can be a really great one punch that you can get and put yourself in a 1-0 advantage thanks to how niche it is and how its playstyle will revolve in comparison to other decks.
Yep, I definitely can see what you're saying. And it's using another card that we talked about 2 weeks ago, the last time we were on, Iceborne Legacy, changing from a slow spell to a fat or a burst
Yeah.
spell, excuse me. And we talked a lot about when this change came out, what decks will be good. And the 2 weeks ago when it came out, that was the day of the competition, so there wasn't a lot of time to theory craft and find these decks that it works with. But Spiderlands was one that we brought up because there's just so many ways to create those cards in your deck, and I think this will be a really interesting deck to watch going into the rest of the tournament or the rest of the league. And before we go too far, I have received word that we will be featuring Me-Man versus Wamu. So
Okay.
that's going to be an interesting matchup. We obviously have gone over one of Me-Man's decks already, the MF Quinn Rally, but he is also bringing a Bandle Tree Lulu Poppy deck and a Ken and Ari deck that we've all loved to see. Surprisingly, though, not with Shurima, but with a Demacia subtype.
Interesting adaptation. I feel like that could potentially work against some of the more common decks. Maybe more so because of the uh to the whole idea and the over appearance maybe from Ken and Ari. Maybe it's an idea to try and counter that.
Hmm. Yeah, it's definitely going to be an interesting thing to see just because of how popular Shurima has been for the Redeemer and Absolver card duo to grant Ari Overwhelm and just get a huge attack off. But looking at Wamu, he's bringing some Lurk, some Warlords, and a Pantheon Taric deck. Now, we saw a lot of Pantheon 2 weeks
Yeah.
ago on our last cast TDS, but it was without the Taric. But now we see the Taric added back to the deck, which I really, really like. one of the problems that we saw last week was Pantheon alone is really, really difficult to just get the win with. But once you include
Yeah.
Taric into that deck, you have another avenue to win the game through because Taric can just super buff any unit that he's with, and then also work towards leveling up that Pantheon eventually. And then Warlords obviously has been a mainstay since it came out, and the Lurkers has seen a resurgence sit recently with how slow a lot of the decks want to play or how weak a lot of the decks are as terms of unit power. Whereas Lurk is just an all out constant aggression deck.
Yeah, and I honestly want to focus on that particular point because I do agree, and not only agree, I do like the mix of the lyrics now coming in because just like you're pointing out, there's a lot of slow control and trying to build up in your decks nowadays. And most of the team, most of the players are playing like that. So having that lurk potential there, I feel like it's a deck that you either have to consider banning away really effectively or risking having to play against it. And lurk is a it's a kind of deck that you don't really want to play against if you're not comfortable against it, right?
Yeah, as we see the first bans coming through, and it's going to be the Kennen Ari getting banned. Obviously, that deck super super powerful, probably S tier, I think
Pretty
S
much
plus.
everyone has it.
Yeah, everyone has it, everyone's running it. No one really likes to play against it just because even if you have a deck that matches up well, it still just comes down to draw, and not a lot of people enjoy that mechanic. I'm interested to see what Me Man bans because obviously left with the Banal Tree and the MF Quinn, there's a couple decks that I wouldn't want to play into for with either of those decks that Wamu has brought out. I mean, the Warlords and the Lurker super super aggressive. Not really too sure how they play into the Bandle tree because obviously for the Bandle tree you're trying to wait for that turn that you can summon a couple of a couple of multi-region followers and get that win through the Bandle tree. And surviving to that point against a lurk deck can be very 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 dangerous. And
Yeah.
same with the Warlords as we
Oh.
see the Warlords taken off the table.
Yeah, it was like you're saying, it was a tough call between the warriors and the lurkers because there's super strong attacks that eventually come through are really something that you have to take into the consideration, especially with the bundle tree. I think much more so with the bundle tree because, like you're saying, it's dependent on bundle tree winning, and you don't have that many units that are strong enough to block or really to sustain so many
Mhm.
attacks. So it was kind of hard to decide, but maybe the power that the Sivir has to buff up so many units and make them as strong as possible in
Mhm.
comparison to just the sheer numbers from the side of the lurkers made the decision to ban just the warlords.
Yeah, I think you're right on the track there, TDS, because Sivir is able to spread Overwhelm to a lot of cards, and running Bandle Tree, you don't really have a lot of high health cards, so even if you're blocking, you're still taking a fair bit of damage. Whereas Lurk, it takes a little bit until those like high power cards with Overwhelm come out. The Dunebreaker is a 6 cost, the Leviathan's an 8 cost, or is it the Leviathan? The Zeus, whatever it's called.
Yeah.
Is it uh is a 5 or 6 cost. Rek'Sai is 3, but takes at least until like turn 8 to or turn 7 to really, really level up if you're not getting Rek'Sai out or Rek'Sai lurks attacks off. So you do have a little bit of time where you can just block with your units that have low health and not worry about taking Nexus damage and hopefully get to that Bandle Tree win condition.
Yeah.
And on the flip side of that, the Pantheon Taric deck I think is a lot easier to play into with both of the Bandle Tree and the MF Quinn deck, just because of the power that Fleet Feather Tracker brings you in addition to MF's passive to just deal bonus damage to a unit you've challenged with is very very simple to do to Pantheon and clear that part off. And then the Bandle Tree is just going to be able to survive through that fairly easily to try to get that win condition.
Yeah, I feel like the lurkers will be the one that if it gets played, it's probably the one that has a higher chance of winning. I feel like with the Pantheon Taric, it's going to be much more contested and much manageable by me, man, because of how many things kind of have to work out with the Pantheon Taric as well. And you have good answers in the like you're saying in the scouts particularly, but also even in the bundle tree, you have kind of good ideas to play around this. I think that the lurkers will be a much more surefire win for Wamu, and the Pantheon Taric is going to be the true test for him, at least in this series, where how I see it.
Yes, I mean, we're gonna have to wait to see what happens
Yeah,
in the live game, but I mean, It's gonna be interesting. I mean, we haven't seen MF Quinn, I think, at all in the whole tournament, even when we were doing the weekly tournaments, back in October and November.
The good old days.
Yeah, and I mean, I always thought that it was a strong deck. I never really thought it fell too far out. It's always just been a difficult thing when you have such high power spell damage decks or such fast, like hyper aggressive decks like the discard when that was around. As we get into this first game between Wamu and Me-Man, and Wamu's running the the lurker, kind of expected. Me-Man is running the MF Quinn, but he's discarded all of his Quins. He drew two on the mulligan.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised with that. We have seen this previously in other decks as well, where you discard
Mhm.
one of your, like, it's okay to discard to mulligan one of your main cards, but when you have multiple of those, keeping one just in case you never see it again, it's much more valuable.
Mhm. And it's kind of sad too because we saw the Caitlyn nervous emote come out because he is the Bright Steel Protectors, the the Genevieve Elmhart, a lot of these cards that can come out early to buff cards, but there's nothing to use the Bright Steel Protector on. There's nothing to really do with the Genevieve yet, and he's just gonna have to keep playing cards and hope that there's no lurking going on. Which surprisingly, there was no lurk for Wamu on this first attack from him.
Yeah, on the first one, not yet, but now it's beginning to start. You at least you from Pro Mechan Mima, he was able to stop one of the attacks and has a strong board to kind of defend from any potential right now. So at least buying himself some Nexus health in the starting turns.
Yeah, and as he's getting into this, the further into his deck, he's pulled two of his three non-lurk cards. So he got his first non-lurk out of the way. So he's going to be in a pretty good position as the game goes on, and we're going to see Valor hit the board, which I can understand. I'm just curious where they think. Okay, yeah. So the Bracer Protector is coming out as well, and they're going to try and clear off this Xerxai collar before too much can go wrong.
Yeah, I think this is the best. Try to keep the enemy board as clear as possible. Although it's not go. Yeah, no, it's not going to clear immediately. It's just pretty much setting up the attack. Maybe he wants to keep up attacking so that he can maybe threaten earlier on with against the enemy help.
Yeah, and curiously, he didn't go for two attacks. I think it would have been very interesting to see if he could have got extra damage off because he's already down. He's already brought Wamu down to 8. He could have brought it down even further. And the hammer snout coming out, I would say it was a bad move because with the MF Quintek, MF is really how you win. And saving that hammer snout for when the MF comes out is a great choice. But obviously the MF hasn't come out and it's already turned 5, so he knows that it's not in hand.
Yeah, he pretty much is setting on the fact that with how the turns have went, MF is probably not there. He may get he gets a really nice attack here. Obviously, the Balder will not die thanks to the barrier, but it's still a nice attempt to keep up the damage.
hmm And we're gonna see a couple more units come out, and I think Meeman's gonna set up for a pretty good attack. He has the Island Navigator in his hand. He could easily go for an Island Navigator drop next turn, have a fairly wide board, 6 units, granted this Valor survives, and get I think just a full after the Island Navigator comes out, but an attack after that, and really everything gets taken out. But instead, we see the Bone Skewer being used.
I was thinking if we may get an opening attack, if that doesn't go through, if we get an opening attack on the next turn to maybe threaten, but it's probably not going to be like that. It's probably going to be a much more setup based attack from Mima. Although another attack from Wamu, this shouldn't be blocked. Okay, it's actually going to be blocked.
So I think blocking here is the right answer. You want to remove as many cards from Wamu's board as possible, so that next turn when you play the Island Navigator, you have two more units to attack and hit Nexus with. And it's obviously insanely RNG what happens. It's all he's gonna go for the Genevieve instead. Now this is a very interesting move, and I actually like it a lot because he can only play one card, And the Genevieve and the Bright Seal both have 9 damage. This is a gamble
Yeah,
saying that there's no Bone Skewer in Wamu's hand, and it pays off. That's the win.
yeah, the previous Bone Skewer pretty much just made the bet from from Mima be better, and at the end it does get the win. I really like the decision there, like you're saying, because I didn't consider it. Clearing the cards over the deck on that last turn to just make for a better attack on the next turn, right? And the setup was there. He
Mhm.
cleared up the board really early on, set up a lot of damage early on as well to threaten a lot of Nexus health. And at that point, even without Misfortune, he had enough damage with the extra buffing to the allies to be able to take down the enemy Nexus from Wamo. And I really like how Mima played that.
No, I think it was really, really well played, and I really like the Genevieve angle. And I mean, he just had a couple cards in his hands that he could have played any angle he wanted,
Yeah,
really. Gone for a little bit more RNG with the Island Navigator in case something bad happened. But the Genevieve Almha paid off. Wamu pulling 2 Rek'Sais in a row was just on an unfortunate turn of events, I guess, because if he had been able to find another Bone Skewer, that would have been able to stall out the game at least another 2 turns, and Wamu maybe could have stabilized and came back. But now we're into the 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 Bandle City and or the Demacia Buildwater deck. So this is the no, this is the Bandle tree. Excuse me.
the Bandle Tree, yeah. It's Bandle Tree against the Lurkers once again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the Bandle tree. Obviously, all these cards are about summoning multi-region followers. Already, we have Noxus and the Shadow Isles off the board. Next turn, we'll probably see Bandle City and Targon off the board, and then depending on what that card creates, we'll see another different region pulling out. So we're already off to a pretty good start for the Bandle tree. I mean, there's only what 5 more regions he needs to find in hand.
I think it should be 5 or 6 if I'm not wrong. But and also it's helping the fact that Wamo hasn't really set up for any of the Lurk potential yet. So it's
Mhm.
just a slow start for Wamo. Meanwhile, on the other side, Mima is able to begin starting really effectively in the game, starting fast, pretty much.
Yeah, and it's a really, really good start for him just because just because Wamu hasn't been able to lurk, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
Turn 3, the first attack, the first lurk is definitely not where you want to be as a lurk deck, especially when Meeman has found the Bandle tree. We've seen it a lot in the previous games we've seen with the Bandle tree. Players have just failed to find the Bandle tree, and then they just have to try and stall out until they can play the Bandle tree and win that turn. So finding it this early is definitely a good start for me, man. Especially because Wamu hasn't really gotten a wide board or a lot of lurks off yet.
Yeah, Mima is still doing a really nice job to keep controlling the board to stop Wamu from even putting a lot of cards down. And the Lurk is just not finding its place in this deck. Yeah, you may get up some creatures now, but it's been slowed down really effectively by Mima. And with the bundle tree, like you said, the fact that it's already in hand, it's just setting up better and better for Mima. There's still chance that he just takes too long, but it's still a good opening for Mima. Although Wamo now finally being able to throw down some cards and some board presence.
Yeah, and there we see that card that we've talked about so much, the Zerzareth, the Under Titan. I knew that was going to trip me up, but that card is one of the win conditions for the Lurk deck. It gains Overwhelm once it's powerful enough, and along with the Zersai Doombreaker and Rek'Sai, are going to be able to get a huge attack off straight through blockers to the Nexus, which is definitely not something you want to have to deal with. And we're gonna have to find out what happens soon because I can't tell, but I think that says 3 power or 5 or 4 power for
I think
the
it's 4. If I'm not
Zerzareth.
wrong, it's 4. Yeah,
But we only have what is it, 3 or 4 more regions to find for the Vandal tree.
it's becoming better and better for the Vandal tree for those regions, and now has to come the lure potential. Though Pike being a potential here,
I don't think he goes for the pike. Maybe he does, but there's no opportunity to turn him into a spell this round. So you'd have to choose something that you want to have whether you can attack or not. So maybe it's the Jawfish, or maybe it's the Pike just so you can draw and play that card and then use the spell as well in that turn. It's taking
how
a
far?
minute to decide.
Yeah, he's starting hard.
Looks like
It
he was
ended up.
chose the Pike.
Yeah, he ended up going. It seems for the Pike, but is he close to the level up though with the Pike? Because I
He's
think that would be one of the decisions for him to get that Pike, right?
he is not he has not played the Pike spell or Pike yet, so there's no damage towards the level up. But with the power that it's at right now, I believe it would technically level up.
Okay.
It needs to have 8 damage for you to play, attack, and use the pike spell to level up in one turn, depending on how many pikes or pike spells you have. So if you only have the one pike and one pike spell, you need 8 damage on the pike on the turn that you use both to level it up in one turn. But I mean, there's still a good possibility. We're down to 6 power on the Zerzureth, so it's +4. So you only need another two lurk two lurks to get the pike out. Oh,
Yeah, I
they
feel like he should be really close to it. Pike comes down now.
did he discard one of the pike spells?
On the Pike gets immediately deleted just as soon as he get it, but I think that he didn't discard it. I don't think he didn't discard any just yet.
Hmm. Well, either way, the Buster Shot coming out is definitely the
Yeah,
correct play from Me-Man, just because you can't allow the Pike to set up. You can't allow the Pike to get to that level up, because once it does, it's just game over. There's no way you keep cards on the board.
especially so many easy to kill cards against a Pike that will be so strong at that point. Like yeah, it would be pretty much impossible, especially you needing to be able to throw down the region cards.
Hmm. And I've lost track a little bit, but we see Ionia in hand. We see Bilgewater. Both these cards coming out, I think, would put the Bandle Tree over the edge. I think we're only missing
We're missing
Demacia.
Shurima, right?
No, we saw the what is it called? The Bomber Twins.
Oh yeah,
So I think we're only missing maybe Demacia. I think that's the only card that he doesn't have in his deck. From Yeah, that's the only. Or no, he has Poppy, so he has to find
just
Poppy or
Puppy.
play
Yeah,
the Bandle Tree to to get the level up. So
I think at this
definitely
point he
a
should go for it.
yeah. I think he should go for the Bandle Tree. I'm not sure if he's worried about a landmark removal card because there are none in Wamu's deck. All he needs to do is play the Bandle Tree and survive. And the longer he waits, the less likely that becomes, because the Rek'Sai will show up someday, and the Rek'Sai, once it gets overwhelmed, it's basically the game is over.
Yeah, there's also the Bone Skewer on hand, so this is a great chance for him for Wamu to force an attack.
And yeah, there's a Rek'Sai on top of the deck, so that's a lot of power that's just come out, and he needs to find a way to block a lot of it. And the Pokey Stick, I like. Pokey Stick going after the Xerxai Hatchling is probably the best use of that spell for this matchup, just because of Fearsome and 1 health is not really a valuable use of resources.
Yeah, at least with that, you certainly are able to kill one of these lower health units that could be really risky. But I was surprised. I'm surprised the Bone Skewer didn't wasn't used to force something out before the attack. And there's one at hand, so it's kind of interesting not seeing it coming up. Like you're saying, the Rek'Sai is already in hand as well. And with the bundle tree coming down, it's
There's
just
Demacia.
yeah,
That's it. That's the game. That's it. The Rek'Sai. It's not even Mama's attack turn. That's just it. So that's just game. Meman takes it
yeah,
2-0.
2-0 from Mima. Really nicely played. I feel like maybe the bundle tree could have come a little bit earlier. It wouldn't. It probably would have made it a little bit longer, but at the end, I think that Mima played that as well as he could. Maneuvered really well the enemy board, denying a lot of potential attacks, making the board as weak as possible. And even in that last attack, he was able to dissuade a lot of the potential utilizing his resources correctly. I feel really deserved victory for Mima. One would try really hard with the lurkers, but a lot of the things just simply didn't fall in position. His lurk was a little bit late, even in this game, and even in the last game a little bit. So it was sadly not enough from Wamu that in those two games.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, maybe I think Meman was just not concerned at all, because he was keeping track of the numbers. He knew
Yeah,
he had the Bandle Tree. He also knew he needed to keep a board presence so that he wasn't just eating damage. And from Wamu, I think he definitely should have played around the Rek'Sai more, because we saw it come into his hand a couple times when he was shuffling it back into the deck, which is something you're supposed to do in the lurks. But we saw it a couple rounds being left in hand, not on deck, not on board, that I think could have been used to accelerate the slow lurk that he had, especially since he had two pikes in hand. I mean, maybe like that's probably just the angle. If you're not getting the Rek'Sai, if you're
yeah.
not getting the lurks off, you need to use that Rek'Sai to accelerate the lurk and then use your pike to try and clear the board and win through that angle because there's just no blockers. And I'm not sure
Yeah.
what happened if it was a spectator bug, but I think one of the pikes just disappeared from his hand. So I'm not sure if he discarded it or it was canceled or something, but
Yeah,
definitely.
I'm not sure about that because I think we both saw it there. I think that maybe it was either killed really quickly and he had to change it there with another one, but
Mhm.
like he had the bone skewer in hand at one point and it just kind of disappeared when the pipe was in. So I'm not sure what happened in that particular turn, but I feel like maybe with in regards to the Rek'Sai, maybe it was the fear of instant or of it getting immediately killed by some spell damage or something like that. Since the hand from Miman was really building up, maybe he was fearing one potential card there destroying his Rek'Sai
Mhm.
and not allowing him to even do anything with the Rek'Sai.
Yeah, I mean, you always have to watch out for the mini morph. Always a fun card to
The
deal with.
great
But
card.
either way, Me Man played very, very well. He knew what he was doing. He knew exactly how he needed to win both games. He played to both of those perfectly. So congratulations to Me Man for taking the series 2-0 pretty swiftly. And
Yeah.
we won't be able to find out the rest of the matchups for this series until later. But congratulations to Me Man. Put his team up for this potential qualification to playoffs. Exactly what his team needed. So congratulations to him. TDS, any final words before we cut to a break?
Just quickly that even with this, there's still a there's still chance for anything to happen. So be ready for whatever outcomes end up happening tonight because we may get some surprises coming into playoffs. That's it.
All right, well, there you have it. We'll be taking a short break. Don't change the channel. Don't leave the browser. We'll be right back with some more Legends of Runeterra action. What's up, everybody? We're back. We're here. I forgot to do the pose with you, TDS, but
Yeah,
sorry.
no
Next
synchronization.
time.
No synchronization between casters. It's bad.
Yeah, just cut the cast here. Wookie, we're done. We're going home. Just kidding. We're not done. We're not going home. We're back with some more Legends of Runeterra action. Obviously, Domcast still here. TDS still here. We're looking at the next matchup between the beautiful gamers and Memento Mori. I mean, it's going to be a good one. I think we covered this exact matchup before, like earlier in the season. So, a nice little rematch for both of them. So we can really see something. I don't think this match has as much tied to it in terms of playoff implications, though. Am I correct, TDS?
There is potential here for the playoff implication actually, because even though both teams are currently tied for second and third, or third and fourth place, if I'm not wrong, it's still an interesting matchup. They have chances to get into playoffs if they win this
Mhm.
match, and if they lose, there's a chance that they may get left behind. So it's an interesting matchup. It has the potential to be a salty matchup for whoever loses, but I feel like both teams should be pretty much in playoffs.
Mhm.
Even if one of them loses here, I feel they should be in playoffs. I think Memento Mori has a better chance of getting into playoffs if they even if they lose, but it's still a good enough for both of them. It feels like.
So our father Hirsch has told us that the winner secures a spot. So the winner goes on no matter what. The
Yeah.
loser leaves it up to chance, which is not something you want to do at this stage of the game. But before we get into that, we can talk about the decks that we're going to talk about before we go too far. We're going to start with
Yep.
a tried and true Azir Aurelia. Azir Aurelia deck, you've seen it all. You've seen it once, you've seen it 1,000 times. Shadox is bringing, I think, the most standard of standard Azir Aurelia decks. He's got the Dune Keeper, he's got the Student, he's got the Treasure Seeker, he's got the Duo, the Ribbon Dancer, the Blossoming Blade. He does have field musicians, which is not something you've seen usually when the deck was originally created. Field musicians, though, is still a good card. It generates mana that you can use to cast more Blade Dance spells. But besides that, a very, very standard deck. But
Yeah.
before we go too far, you're gonna bring us in a very, very interesting deck, TDS. Something that we've seen before, but this has got a new twist to it, TDS. What are we looking at?
Yeah, and even though we've seen some a little bit of a variation with this, although this is pretty much a variation, it's the MFGP Darius deck. Obviously, getting the Darius to make a pretty just aggro pirate based deck. I feel like this is such an interesting deck to run into. Just sheer damage, sheer try attempt to damage Nexus as much as possible, and the Darius is there to finish it up. Like as you
Mhm,
can see, the Darius is pretty much just one card of Darius. It's there to end it all. You're basing yourself
mhm.
on the misfortune, the gangplank, and the other units pretty much set up the damage for the deck, and the Darius is the end it all. That's why there's just one copy of it in the whole deck. But as a deck, I feel like there's so much chance to make it use. Like we were saying previously, there's so much control, so much slow play nowadays that I feel like this deck can find so much value against so many decks that we have seen already.
Yeah, I think the Darius is a very, very good addition to this deck because, MF and Gangplank, they're very, very easy to win the game on its own. Darius is just an insane finisher. At at for a level up, it's when the enemy nexus is 10 health or below, which is half health. So very,
Yeah.
very easy level up requirement to hit, especially with a pirate aggro deck like we've seen before. And once you're below 10 health, the Darius levels up. It has 10 power with Overwhelm. You have to find a pretty beefy blocker to spare some health, only to then be followed up by a potential Noxian Fervor or a Decimate to just completely 100% close out the game. Darius
Yeah.
and Decimate, that's 14 damage to your next that you have to find some way to block.
Yeah, and with a lot of the decks nowadays, it's not easy. Like trying to set up with something to stop this kind of damage coming through. There's not a lot of cards that, or at least a lot of decks that have that backup in their decks. There is a lot of spell reliant decks, a lot of just setting up for the high numbers, but not the high defenses. And I feel like this is going to be a clutch deck in those areas because, like you're saying, it's not that hard to get the damage down to get to threaten with the Darius. And even then, the Darius is just an extra to make it easier to win. Like you can still pretty much make it work with the misfortune and the gangplank alone, like it was previously done. The Darius is it's a nice cherry on top to make it harder for your opponent.
it's just another threat that the player has to consider now. You know,
Yeah,
your opponent, if he's running the Bandle City region, he has access to the mini morph. But if you have mini morph and you have to think, you have to stop and wonder, is a Gangplank the bait for the mini morph for the Darius to come out and actually just win the game, or is the Gangplank what I need to mini morph? And the answer is probably you need to mini morph both. But do you
yeah.
mini morph the Gangplank and risk the Darius coming out?
Yeah,
Because
the only kind of caveat for those potential enemy players that are going to face this deck is the fact that it's just a one Darius card. So if you're able
Mhm.
to repel it, you pretty much can stop any potential future threat because there's no more Darius to come through.
you still have to worry about the Gangplank and the MF though, which is
Yeah,
threatening in their own right. I like the deck. I like it a lot. I think it's simple, but there's elegance in simplicity. And I like how just straightforward aggro it is. Even the spells, they only care about dealing damage to your Nexus or to another unit. So definitely a very, very similar deck or simple deck. Excuse me. And
yep,
it'll be interesting to see. You know, all the other decks we've seen, we talked about a couple of them before. Cephalopod on Beautiful Gamers running an Elise Trundle. Haven't been able to see it on stream yet, but would be interesting to see. Azir Aurelia we've seen before. Iceborne Poros we've seen before. That's a very, very interesting deck. Very, very threatening. Ezreal Karma, a very, very old deck. Very, very powerful, but it needs a specific matchup. And I think One of My is trying to find that from the Beautiful Gamers, but we are still waiting to find out who we're going to be watching for this first matchup. And I mean, there's not much more to talk about. I mean, we talked about the Zero Aurelia, nothing really new there. But this Darius deck, it's very, very similar to the Pirate Aggro, but with the Darius, it
yeah.
just adds that insta kill threat potential.
Yeah, I feel like potentially the only thing that would be left to talk about is not only the potential from this deck that we may see, but is there something really effective on the side of beautiful gamers that we may think? Because we talked a couple of about the potential decks. I feel like the Assyria Relia will probably not be the greatest against this kind of pirate aggro deck. And I feel like there should be a good answer from the side of beautiful gamers. But if you're not the matchup against Brad Shikata, this deck may just end up getting banned away immediately.
Yeah, and I mean, Bratched Kata is kind of just his whole lineup is kind of just like that. I mean, Brash Kata is looking to match up with one of those, you know, slower played slower played decks or one of those weaker decks because he's brought a Draven Rumble, MF Gangplank Darius, and Spider Aggro. He's looking to go
He wants
big
blood.
damages. Big
It's,
damage. He does
yeah.
want blood, and he could potentially find it. I mean, we have the Azir Aurelia, definitely not a deck that does well into spell damage, like you mentioned. There's Iceborne Poros, fairly weak deck, but without enough spells to clear out the elusive the elusive Daring Poros, then it's kind of hard to play into. Bandle Tree, another slow deck. You have to wait for that Bandle Tree to level up. It
Yeah.
seems like Beautiful Gamers has stuck with this slow meta, this slower play of a idea for all of their decks, really. Whereas
Yeah.
Brashketa is just going to go all pedal 100%. And I mean, it looks like that's kind of what they are looking at as we get into our matchup, which is going to be Shadox versus
Ooh.
Sergi Tuvamos.
Yeah, Surgery to Vamos.
And you know,
That's
oh sorry, dude, go TDS.
no. I was going to say just in terms of how you say it. That's okay. That's like that. Surgery to Vamos.
Yeah, I mean Sergi Tuvamos is running the Kennen Ari Ionia Shurima, the Taric Pantheon, and the Warlords as the
Oh,
bands coming out immediately are going to be the Ari Kennen for Sergi Tuvamos and the Aurelia Azir for Shadox, which is very, very interesting. I would have imagined they don't want to deal with the elusive Poros because I mean the Warlords is very, very easy to deal with Azir Aurelia, at least from what I remember. There's enough vulnerables, there's enough quick attack to be able to clear those big units on the backline that you want to get rid of the Aurelia, the
yeah.
Azir. But the the daring Poros, there's just so many daring Poros, and with enough Iceborne Legacies, they're all gonna be like insanely high power cards, like 7/7s, 8/8s at some point.
Do you
Definitely
think
an
that maybe
interesting
the
decision.
Pantheon Taric has enough survivability for that one?
You know, I I don't think any deck has the survivability for that one. I mean, there's gonna be
Okay.
3 Poros. There's 3 Poros in the deck. There's 3 3 Poro cannons to create n 8 no, 3 Poro cannons to make 6 more Daring Poros. So that's 9 Daring Poros total just from, like, cards in your hand, and you're gonna create more Poros with your Poro Snacks and your Borealis, and then eventually you're just gonna have enough Daring Poros that you have a bunch of elusive cards that you can't block, or you're gonna play Heart of the Fluff and you're gonna have some, like, 50 power Overwhelm Poro. So it's like eventually you're going to run
Yeah.
out of sustain with any deck.
Yeah. Like this feel like this would have been the Poros at least would have been a great attack towards the with the aggro kind of decks, but we just don't see that that much aggro potential from the side of Surgeon Vamos. So it feels risky to say the least. Like I feel like even if he gets the first win with the against the Poros, like as long as you're going against that deck, it's going to be hard. But on the other side, on the other hand, not no pun intended. If he gets the first win against the Poros and he's able to win against that earlier, then maybe he can get the upper hand.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to look at it. I mean, both of his decks, I would imagine, do well into the Bandle tree. But if the Bandle tree is able to find like a good draw, a good curve into like the earliest round that you can potentially win with the Bandle tree, it's going to be very, very difficult for I think Pantheon Tark to really level up. The Pantheon Tark, I think, is the biggest mystery for this game or for this matchup, just because if you're not pulling the units in the Tark Pantheon deck, you can't get towards the level up mechanic of Pantheon. Because without units, you're not targeting them. With not targeting them,
Yeah,
you're not living up the Pantheon. So Warlords is going to be able to is going to need to find the win against the Daring Poros, I think, so that you
I
can
feel
hope
like
to get
that's
the
that's the
win with the
best
Bandle
bet you
tree.
can go for, right?
Yeah, I
Like
mean, from a macro sense, I think you have to try and find the win with the Warlords versus the Daring Poros, so that you can play Pantheon Tark twice and hope you get the win with one of those tries.
yeah, at least in that sense, like if you get the 50-50 chance with the Pantheon Taric, one's bound to work, right? Like one should work out. I think that is one of the
You
better
can't draw terribly
bets.
twice.
Well, we have seen enough games to maybe think otherwise, but yeah, like statistically speaking, there should be a good chance to win with the Pantheon Taric. And now we will know with which they start. It's going to be the Poros. No, it's going to be Bandle City
The
for
Bandle tree and the
Shadows.
Warlords.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is exactly what we were talking about. You're gonna try and look for the win with the Warlords into the Poros, and then try and get a win with one of the two matchups you have left with the Tarek Pantheon.
Okay, so we're pretty much reading what's needed to be read from what I'm saying. We're on the right track. That's great.
Yep, and I think just from the opening hand from both both Surgery to Vamos and Shadox, I think they both have a really good start. Shadox already finding the Bandle tree, something we talked about last matchup, where finding
Yeah.
the Bandle tree is the hardest part. And then he also has the Loping Telescope and the House Spider, whereas Surgery to Vamos had the Penitent Squire and the Vanguard and Action and the Bracelet Protector. Such a good start. All those cards are useful. All of them curve really well into protecting the action and getting this level up. And then pulling the Golden Aegis is just still such a good setup for the rest of this because you can go for a big turn, a big attack turn, and try and clear a lot of the board that Shox is going to try and pull out.
Yeah, the start. I feel like both of the players starting with a really nice setup. Obviously, the Bandle tree coming out like you're saying, but a lot of the units that you would want to pull out, maybe having that repeated card kind of makes it harder, a little bit harder for you as Shadows. But Surgery to Vamos as well, answering really well. We always talk about trying to get the action as soon as possible because it is one of the cards that if you get the early level up, it's going to enable much more easily that Seaver
Mhm.
later on.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you mentioned the double pull. I think if you're gonna pull two of any card, you want to pull two of the poppies, just because of how hard that card's been hit with Nurse. Having one and to bait out a clear and then pulling the second one is definitely a nice little backup.
Yeah, that is a better way to look at it, certainly. And if you're going to try and survive some of the attacks, having that extra survivability with the Poppy, it's going to be
Mhm.
ideal as well.
Yeah, and the only problem now though is that the Vanguard is still out there, so the Vanguard still has enough power to clear the Poppy, which you'd never want to see. But we're gonna see it played here and potentially look for some sort of clear spell. Now, luckily, Sergi Tuvamos, or lucky for Shotox, Sergi Tuvamos doesn't have any clear cards. He doesn't have the Cataclysm. He doesn't have single combat, but he does have the Bright Steel Protector, so he's going to be able to try and block with the Action. I don't think he should though, because he has to watch out for the Pokey Stick or something like that. Well, I'll change my statement because Shox doesn't have any mana, so the Pokey Stick is
Yeah.
not useful.
Yeah, at least not this time around. So it's a better bet to go for, especially with the barrier. I feel like that just makes it a little bit harder. Now it does take away, but I feel like this is smarter from Shadox because if you really go for that attack, you risk getting your Poppy cleared, and you still don't know if there's a chance for the Poppy to get cleared later on. Although now with the summon of the Silver, really early on as well, getting thrown out.
Wow, with Challenger, so the Tattered Banner was used to grant Sivir another keyword. This is a really, really good play from Sergi Tuvamos, and it's gonna be interesting to see what Shadox goes for. The Aloof Travelers definitely would have been a good card. Unfortunately, the Sivir's already been played, so it's not going to get discarded. But the four Demacia, that's just an unfortunate one from that.
Yeah, also now forcing the attack against the Poppy, trying to clear the Poppy as soon as possible as well. So really making it harder for Shadox to set up even a defense. It's going to take a lot of attack. I'm not sure if you even want to go for a defense here just because of the threat of throwing some cards away, but it seems like
Hmm.
he's maybe setting up for that.
Yeah, and he's not opting to block the action and try and clear because he knows that there's going to be something in Sergio Tufano's hand that's going to power up that action so that it does
Yeah.
not get cleared. So definitely a good play there. Unfortunately, he loses the Poppy and the rest of his board, so he has to start over from scratch here. He's found another Aloof Travelers, but I don't think there's anything of value to discard in Sergi Tuvamos' hand, which is, I mean, something Shadox obviously can't know, but it's just unfortunate for Shadox that he has these high value cards and he just hasn't found a good opportunity to use them.
Yeah, I feel like the setup for Sergio Ramos has been so good since the start with the action, getting that defense built up as well in his board, and then the pull of the Silver really set himself up for success with that. And now we're just moments away from a potential level up from both the Silver and the action, and a really big attack to come. And the lack of power from that defense in the side of Shadox is going to be really detrimental. Like he still has the advantage that he has the Bando tree, but will he get a chance to actually get that win condition? It's the problem now. Although now, hmm.
So, oh wow. So I was going to mention that Shadox went for the Charger as his invoke as opposed to the Proto Poro. I would imagine that the Proto Poro was going to help him towards his Bandle tree win condition, but I suppose he's looking for damage right now. But this 4 Demacia is just so big. Granting all units 3/3 is just insane. And we see Shadox going for the Pokey Stick here so that he can mini morph, which is, I think, is the correct play. There's going to be too much damage coming out here.
Yeah,
Sivir will be leveling up at some point during this attack, granting quick attack to all the rest of the cards, which means you're going to be losing a lot of your board. Now the stun I really like. Saving the mini morph for another opportunity, whether it's going to be going on to the Sivir or the Akshan, but it's gonna have to wait till next turn to use that. Whereas there's yeah, I guess that's the right play.
maybe he wants to stop if for the Sivir potentially leveling up. He wants to use it at that moment. But it's still risky because in the next turn, if you get another good chance to draw out something powerful enough, like you can just lose at that point with the amount of damage that is already on board. A lot of cards being sent to just stop this one attack, and there's a level up.
Yeah, and they're not even trading out. I mean, the Sivir levels up no matter what this turn, since it doesn't have to be like a I've seen level up condition. But I guess they're saving the mini more for the next big attack. But they're running out of cards. They're running out of board presence. I mean, they need to find the last region that they need, which I think is Ionia and Freljord. But they opted to not pick the Freljord card out of the invoke from the Loping Telescope, and they haven't found Lulu or the Bandle Commando, so they're not going to be able to find an Ionia card anytime soon either, unless they pull it, obviously.
Yeah, and also important to notice, Surgery almost also pulled another Sivir, so even if this one gets Minimorph, there's still another one to come during the next turn as well.
Mm-hmm. So Shadox opted to go for another Arachnoid Sentry, which I think is the smart play, just because you're able to stun the Sivir again without having to mini-morph it. Now the Bandle coming out 9
Yeah, it's
already.
one away.
So the next turn, I would have liked to see it. Oh, I would have liked to see it last turn. I You could have lived without spending any mana last turn. Not spending, but you could have lived with saving enough mana for the Bandle Tree, and then this turn you would have had the Ionia card, and it would have been your attack turn, and you could have survived this attack. You could have survived this rally easily, and
It
had
would
the
have been a
Ionia card
chance.
out. Sorry,
Yeah, it would have been a nice chance to stop any potential
but now you have to
threat
survive
here.
this turn and next turn.
Yeah.
You could have survived last turn. You could have played the thing last turn and survived with eating a little bit of damage, and then got the Ionia card and survived this turn also very easily.
Still another nice stun onto the Sivir at least, so stopping her from being a powerful attack.
Mhm. Yeah, I do really like the stun play just because we obviously see that there's another Sivir in hand. Saving that mini morph for another opportunity and keeping the Sivir on board so that another one cannot be played with the stuns is very, very smart. As we see the Ricochet come out,
Oh,
that's just going to clear the board now. That's just going to clear the board. Or no, I guess I I guess it decided to hit the Nexus a couple times instead.
yeah, instead of actually clearing the board. And that would have
Shadox
been.
actually saved
Oh.
Shadox.
Yeah, if the board gets cleared, I think that's pretty
That was the
much.
game.
Yeah. This is what we speak sometimes of, where yes, people don't like it, but this small RNG things does help.
Yeah, and there's a big attack here. Man, I mean, I'm not sure. I'm not really sure what to do here. I mean, you have it's. I'm not sure what Sturdy Tuvamos is going to do here anymore. Like he's losing these cards on board. So next turn, all all Shadox has to do is play the Ionia card and
And he wins.
survive
Yeah.
10 damage. Now, obviously, we're going to see more cards come out, and then we're going to also see the Absolver and Redeemer played to grant severe overwhelm and grant all cards overwhelm. But that's when we'll see the the mini morph come out.
Yeah, that it's so important the amount of time that Shadox has kept
Okay,
that card there.
so Shadox has to mini morph the Sivir and play the Ionia card and have enough mana to block another attack from the Aegis, the Golden Aegis that Surgeon Wellness has played. So he has to mini morph the Sivir, survive that attack, and then survive another attack that could potentially be even stronger because there's 11 mana in, well, 10 mana now in Surgeon Wellness' hand. He has the opportunity to play two of his he has the opportunity to play two of his uh well, maybe even three if the mini morph goes off. Oh no. So he's gonna have the opportunity to play two. So this is a very, very interesting play. If Sergio Ramos opts to pull the Arachnoid Sentry, the mini morph is going off onto the Sivir no matter what. So he
Yeah.
opted not to. But the mini morph, if Sivir had pulled the Arachnoid Sentry and the mini morph went off, the mini T would have been cleared, and Sergio Ramos would have been able to summon three charging sand, charging whatever's, and then rallied and had a full board, three of those cards having 5 power, and then he can still do that now. He can still do that now. The mini morph has to come out. Mini morph has to come out. It has to come out, Shadox. You have to play it here.
He's not going
No,
for. Okay, so he
this
is
is
it
just
worth to
game.
save it?
It's game
Yeah,
over.
no.
This is just game over for this is just game over for Shadox. He needed a mini morph. He needed a mini morph and then get another unit out on the board. Here's the Azara and Redeemer, and they don't even need the charging sandstones anymore.
Yeah, no.
They don't.
maybe he was like, I can see him maybe
It's
worrying
just
too
game.
much about the potential from something else happening, but yeah, it had to come through.
You had to mini morph there. There was no other option. You had to mini morph. You can't even the cannon play doesn't even work because you're not going to be able to fast.
Yeah.
He had to mini morph Sivir on the last attack, and then he had to hope that he could get enough units out while Sergi Famos went for the charging sandstone rally play. It,
Yeah, and I'm surprised that it ended. Like it was really close because the minimorph there, and I say this, I give credit to Shadox for holding the minimorph as long as he did because it was setting himself up to denying the saver.
but
But
it had to be
he
there.
held he held it. Yeah, he held it longer than he needed to because at that point, if he just uses, he denies at least the potential from the saver, and there's a chance that you have a better potential from defense there. You still needed to survive that next attack, yes, but without the saver, like your chances go up way higher. But at that point, like he held it way too long, and the damage was just not enough to defend there. It was really really close, but because it was just that one turn. If that one turn doesn't go in the favor of Sergi to Vamos, that's it. Shadox wins thanks to the Mantle Tree.
And it was Shadox's to win.
Yeah.
All I needed to do was mini morph. Before I get too hung up, we're gonna go into the next game. It's gonna be the Bandle Tree again into the Taric Pantheon. So this is the deck that we said might have a little trouble if it does not pull well, but he's able to call the Saga Seeker, and that's a good start. He's able to find a unit. There we go. That's all you need. Keep
He
this. No, no, don't guiding touch. No, Pal
wants to keep it
Cascade.
alive.
No, Pal Cascade. Pal Cascade.
He
You Pal
wants to keep it alive.
Cascade.
That's it.
You don't need draw. You need Pal. The problem is we see the Ravenous Flock in Shadowx's hand, which obviously from our third person perspective, we know
We
that
know, yeah.
Guiding Touch would deny the Ravenous Flock. Pal Cascade, you're getting a 1-1, you're getting more power on the attack anyways. And you save the +2, you save the heal for when a potential Ravenous Flock comes out targeting your target that has 4 health or 3 health, and then you just heal it back to full, and the Ravenous Flock doesn't even go off.
Yeah, he's still buffing up a lot the unit, so pretty much yeah, he's trying to keep it as healthy as possible so that it doesn't die.
But now we're going to see it take 2 damage, and the Ravenous Flock will come out, and there's nothing
Yeah.
left in Sergi Famos's hand. He doesn't have no mana. He can't use the armor vest, and that's just gone. All that work for nothing.
Yeah, too early on the call to go buffing up the unit. I feel like at the start you do pull out the unit. That's great, like you were saying, but buffing it up so heavily at that point, maybe too over needed. Not
And
not
now you have a
really
Targ.
needed.
Now you have a Targ with no unit to use the Targ effect on. You just eat the damage there. The 2 damage you saved is not worth losing. You're 4/6 overwhelmed Saga Seeker. But
Yeah, putting himself into a rough spot. At least he does pull out as well the Pantheon now, so there's a good
and
chance you may end up using it.
And I mean, this is a good angle for Shadox. Now he has the Poppy on board. He has 4 other units on board that will all be affected by the Poppy passive, or 3 other units that will be affected by the Poppy passive. The Tark Chain Vest coming out is good, and then the single combat is also smart. I like that play. Clear the Poppy out because the Poppy could win the game without the Bandle Tree at this point with the board that Shadox has built up, especially since you have no other units besides the Pop or the Targ on board. Now this
Yeah,
attack is good also. I like that he didn't attack with the 2 cost units because it wouldn't have done very much damage to Tark, and it kind of just forces Tark to not block the 4 damage charger. So you saved this wide board, which is very, very important going forward because Pantheon is in hand for 32 almost now.
yeah, it's keeping up the potential threat from the Pantheon from coming through. Like he doesn't know that it's there, but he may be feeling that it may come through eventually. So it's important to keep up some defense in some cases. And the Balton tree does get pulled off now. Maybe realizing that the previous time, if he had done that earlier, he would have had a better chance. But now it does come through. Same with the Pantheon.
Yeah, the Pantheon being held until he sees that that Shadox is below 6 mana, so the Minimorph is no longer a threat. But Shadox, I also like playing the Bandle Tree this early. He has blockers. He has the ability to save some health next to his health, and he's going to be able to accelerate towards that Bandle Tree level up condition even faster now. The unfortunate part of this is that both Taric and Pantheon have Overwhelm and a good bit of damage already.
Yeah, he's going to feel he's going to feel the hurt a little bit, but it's nothing that bad just yet. Like at least with what happened at the start with the first unit dying like that and the amount of resources that were spent, like it does buy the Shadows a little bit of time before he has to be much more worried about anything potentially bad. He still has
So
the minimorph as well.
unlucky. He created a Piltover card, and it was Corina, which is 9 cost, and he
Yeah,
has an Aloof Traveler in hand. Unlucky.
yeah. So
But
now making it longer for him, it's harsh for Shadows.
well, he will be able to make sure that he gets Piltover and Ionia off the board on this turn, since he
Yeah,
has Kennen and the Aloof Travelers. I would like to see the Aloof Travelers come out now. You know, Tarik's already on the board, Pantheon's already on the board. The only thing you can do is clear a high cost card like the Concerted Strike that procs both Tarik effect. It levels up Tarik's condition 2 and levels up Pantheon's condition 1. So yeah, a really good play by Aloof Travelers clears the Concerted Strike, blocks a faded proc from Pantheon this turn, and now we see the level up though.
thanks to the guiding touch, we get the level up from the Pantheon. We're still not yet there with the level up the Taric, but still such an important level up to play around. Obviously, the Pantheon, one of the main, pretty much the main condition to get as much damage down as possible.
Oh, this game's just over. He's got Quick Attack, Overwhelm, Lifesteal, Challenger, and Regen. I don't think there's anything you can do this game. This is where the mini morph comes out. You have to use it on Pantheon before, maybe not this turn, but next turn you have to use the mini morph on Pantheon. You can't allow this to happen
Yeah,
because the lifesteal is just going to heal him back up to full.
with the overhome, like you can pretty much force an attack. This. Oh no, yeah, sorry. Like he could have with the next attack. With the next attack, it's pretty much impossible to not go for the minimorph, and the minimorph has to come out eventually. Like
Shadox
he
has to do
cannot
nothing
hold it.
here. Shadox has to do nothing. Shadox has to pass and hope that Sergi Tuvamos uses the Cataclysm and then mini morph the turret or the Pantheon when it's the Cataclysm comes out. Because the
Is there
Cataclysm,
I was going to try and say, is there a chance to clear the Pantheon if the Cataclysm comes through?
he cannot clear the Pantheon. He can mini morph it and then it'll take the damage of whatever it's cataclysmed, but he cannot clear the Pantheon. The
Okay.
only thing he can do is mini morph it, I think, at this point. Which he has to mini morph because even oh no. Yeah, this is just it.
Yeah. it, it he had the chance and Bastion came out.
Yeah, he has to. He didn't even have to do nothing. He needed to mini morph last turn before something could have happened. But now it has it'll have Bastion, it'll have Spell Shield. The game is just over. He's gonna challenge a 1 health unit and he's gonna get 9 damage through blocker. Yep, this is just game.
Yep.
Sergi takes it 2-0.
Shadox acknowledges it. And we thought that it was going to be a better chance that the Turek Pantheon doesn't work out in this particular game. Like we gave it a 50-50 because you at least get 2 games if you win the first one, right? And we thought that maybe this one was not going to be it, but it was the next one. But Shadox really in both games it felt like he held the minimorph way longer than he actually needed. And I think that it's both good that he hold it that long because if it works out, it's great. You deny the attack from the enemy. But if you hold it longer than what you needed, we just see what happens, and he just ends up not getting a chance to actually use it and just end up losing.
Yeah, he definitely needed to use it on the Pantheon once it leveled up. I mean, he could have tried to play the the mind game of waiting for like a cataclysm to come out from the
Yeah.
Pantheon to mini morph, but he couldn't have let it wait till the next turn because of the risk of a spell shield coming out like the Bastion and then Bastion being a burst, go straight into the attack, and then there's nothing you can do at the Pantheon. I mean, it came down both games to just holding the mini morph. The first game, it was discipline holding the mini morph that long until it became way too late.
Yeah.
Whereas it was not being proactive enough with the mini morph in the second game. But
I feel
Sergi
like
Vamos, sorry, TDS.
just to add to that, I feel like there was better way room for error in this game than in the last
Mhm.
one with the Minimorph. Like at least in this one, like if you take it away, okay, you risk that there's another Pantheon, but even then, at least you can buy yourself time.
Mhm.
In the last one, there was less room for error. So I feel like it just shows that in the first one he did a really nice job, failing at the end. In this one, he had a better chance to use it, and he didn't use it at the end.
Yeah, but enough focusing on Shadowx. Sergio Ramos played both of those decks insanely well. He played
Yeah.
the the Warlords deck very, very well. Obviously, there was the point for it all to fall apart with the mini morph, but that didn't come through. So then he decided to go for the huge play with the overwhelm Sivir on the rally, as opposed to having to need to use the sunk or the sunken tomb rally angle. So very, very
Yeah.
smart play in the first game. In the second game, very, very smart to recognize that the pass had come through, end of the round, and immediately go into his attack turn to Bastion attack with the huge lifesteal overwhelm Pantheon. And no matter what happened, the game is either over or he is back at 20 health.
Yeah, he at least had more, like just like we were saying with Shadows, he had a lot of room for error. And if
Mhm.
he failed on that particular attack, like he still had so much health that he could work out in the ensuing turns. The only condition that would have really affected him in that part is if the bundle tree was almost charged. Like if it was at 9 or at least 8, just so close to being completed, then I would have seen maybe a worrisome factor for Sergi Vamos. But apart from that, he played that as well as he could. He had a lot of room for error, and
Mhm.
he wasn't fearful of the room for error, and still tried to make the proactive play and force the play for himself. So really well played, really nicely done in the overall series. We were a little bit worried with the decision of the deck, but he really showed up with how he played both decks and ensuring a 2-0 in a really great manner.
Yeah, and congratulations once again to Sergi Chuvamos. But that wraps it up for us tonight. I mean, we saw
Yeah.
2-0 in the first series and we saw 2-0 in the second series. It's a pretty interesting night to come back, TDS. I mean, I'm very excited that we got to see those matches. We actually got to see Pantheon Tark win. I don't think we saw him win last week, and we saw 2 games with him.
Yeah, I think we saw one lose just from Pantheon. Like apart from that, we saw a Pantheon that just ended up losing. But yeah, I
Mhm.
think that it's the first Pantheon Taric that has won, and I just like that it's becoming a much more common trend now. Watching the Pantheon with the Taric, not the Pantheon alone, because I feel like they complement each other really well, and it makes for a much more strong version of the deck.
Yeah, definitely. Tark's Pantheon confirmed better than just Pantheon. But that does it here for us tonight. That's been your weekly stream for Legends of Runeterra, brought to you by Runeterra Academy and metafy. Beautiful gamers taking the loss to Memento Mori, and the Portal Protectors taking the win versus uh
Open pass. Yeah.
Open Pass. Yeah. So yeah, that does it for us. Thank you all for tuning in. I was Domcast. That was TDS. TDS, you have anything to say before we cut it off?
No, I'm really excited for the playoffs. Ready for
Revert Ari.
playoffs
Don't make the
coming up.
changes.
Yeah. Speaking a little bit about LoL, Ari rework, not convinced, but maybe we get better news in the future. But yeah, we're close to playoffs. We're really excited for about this, and hopefully we get some better matches coming into the playoffs already.
Yep. I mean, I'm looking forward to the playoffs as much as you are. I'm glad that we got to see a lot of you know important matches. They had
Yeah.
their playoff implications. We are waiting for Hirsch to send me something that he wants to announce that I will read off
Ooh.
once he hits send. Sir Hirsch is typing. What do you think it's gonna be,
We're
TDS?
at the mercy of whatever Hirsch wants us to say. So sadly,
Oh,
it could be good or bad.
yeah. I mean, it depends on how you look at it. It depends on how you look at it. It's if you are a team that's made playoffs, it's a good thing. If you are a team that has not made playoffs, it doesn't
Okay.
matter. It doesn't mean anything for you because on Saturday there will be a playoff draft stream. So you'll be able
Ooh.
to see who's going where in the playoff bracket for the first playoffs of the first league of Legends of Runeterra run by Runeterra Academy. It's gonna be a big one. Wait, all right. Hirsch is a liar. It's Friday, so it is tomorrow. He said tomorrow, then he said wait Saturday, but now it's Friday. So Friday, guys, not Saturday. Tomorrow,
It's not
24
the first
hours.
time Hirsch lies to us.
Every day. It's every day, man.
Yeah.
But
Disappointing.
but either way, Friday draft stream. I probably won't be there, but maybe I will be. It'll be exciting to watch. I'm gonna watch it whether I'm not there or not. But 8 p.m. playoff draft stream. If you're a team that's made it, you want to know so you can prep against who you're gonna have to play in the playoffs so that you can go all the way.
Or if you want to blame Hirsch for the
Yeah,
bad drop. So hey, everything works. You
you can
should
do
watch
both.
it.
You can do both.
Exactly.
You can flame Hirsch and watch the draft.
Exactly. What better way to have your Friday to have your Friday than flaming Hirsch and getting excited about Legends of Runeterra? I think that's great.
All right. Well, I'm marking it down in my calendar to flame Hirsch, but he says I'm fire. I know I'm fire. I'm super hot. But that's it. That's
It's the
enough.
third week in a row.
It's enough. It's I am fire. TDS, I'll spread the compliment to you. You've been fire to cast with, but that's it. That's enough. Draft stream tomorrow, 8 p.m. He hasn't told me what time zone. Show up anytime that's 8 p.m. in a different time zone, but we'll be here. It's Eastern time. I'm just joking. 8 p.m. tomorrow, playoff draft. That's it. We're done. I'm out.